number 2, we are sponsored by SuperDraft. Pete, it's fight day, 90 minutes before the fights are going to kick off on ESPN Plus. How you doing, man?
What's popping? What's going on? I'm pumped to have some fights again. It's been fight overload lately. I'm not complaining, but this is a very interesting card, and some interesting key points to look at, some spots to target, and can't wait to see what you guys are going to ask us.
Of course, we are here to answer your questions leading up to UFC Fight Island number 2. Of course, headlined by flyweight title fight, Deiveson Figueiredo versus Joseph Benavidez. That is something that we talked a lot about on the strategy show on Thursday. Will Deiveson Figueiredo make weight? He made weight, so the fight is official. We are set. Since Thursday, has your thoughts on the fight changed any? Because it really haven't changed for me. My thoughts are simple: I think if Deiveson Figueiredo wins this fight, I believe it's within the first 10 to 12 minutes. The longer the fight goes on, yes, I favor Joseph Benavidez. And also, I'm not sure if you got to have this fight to be in the optimal. Now, if Benavidez wins, and especially wins by stoppage, yeah, you probably got to have him be in the optimal. But if Figueiredo wins, I'm not sure if he has to be in your lineup to be in the optimal lineup.
Very interesting. I don't know if my opinion has changed. I think that I have just a gut feeling about Benavidez, and it's almost because of how the first fight was going. Like, Benavidez looked really good early. It looks like he has more volume than Deiveson Figueiredo. He has a better gas tank. I do know that he's pretty durable within the division. Only been knocked out by Mighty Mouse and now Deiveson Figueiredo. You just have to worry about if it, lightning strikes twice, and if it happens again, because it very well could. Deiveson Figueiredo is a great play at 9K. I'm not avoiding Deiveson Figueiredo at all. I'm going to have plenty of lineups with him, but I really like Benavidez, and it's a low option I can get behind because it's a 125-pound fight. You're not always going to have finishes in that division, despite how powerful somebody is. It's just the facts. And the later the fight goes, like you mentioned, I like Benavidez, but in saying that, is this crucial to have in your lineups? I'm not sure.
It's funny you bring up the stoppage rate at 125 pounds because this morning I'm going through some stats and figures on the fights. I was trying to pull more on the women's side of things, but did it on the men's side of things. At men's 125 pounds, the rate of decisions is 58.2%. Vice versa, on the female side at 125 pounds, decision rate is 64%. And at 115 pounds female side, decision rate 69.3%.
Yeah, I like it when you look at stuff like this for us. You're the numbers guy. You're the, very accomplished MMA reporter. And the people like to hear what you have to say as well. Like, I have a different take on it, but you're very schooled in this sport, so I value your opinion very, very highly.
Especially when I pay attention to the betting lines. And Jed Goodman always, on a female fight, he'll always go, and it cashes when we thinking about that over-under. I did look at the over. By the way, we're going to get into your questions here momentarily. I did look at some of the biggest over 2.5 round props that are out there. So not shocking. Lipsky and Carolina minus 345. Pantoja Askarov minus 230. Jackson Johns minus 250, and Sarukian and Ramos minus 235.
I can't disagree with those. I really think that those are pretty right on. There's some obvious fights that I think are going to go the distance, and of course, the Lipsky Carolina fight is one that really sticks out to me. The Pantoja Askarov, I don't necessarily see a finish coming there either.
Yeah, but of course we are here to answer your questions. Speaking of the betting odds, it's always something to pay attention to because it can tell you about what the betting public thinks of the fights. And over the last 24 hours, the biggest line movement has been on Malcolm Gordon, Montel Jackson, and Joel Alvarez. So those are to kind of show you. I think Joe Duffy, we talked about it a little bit. I know there was a comment in the section on the strategy show. This is my thing about Joe Duffy, is he's not lived up to the hype when he came into the UFC. You remember when he came to the UFC, it was about, this is the guy who beat Conor McGregor. And the UFC was clearly trying to set up to that. And he just hasn't lived up to the hype. You look at his 4 wins in UFC, they all do have something in common. They're not in the UFC anymore. So I think it's not saying that I don't think that Joe Duffy will win. I think there is buyer beware a little bit in that matchup. That's just for me. But Pete, let's get right into the questions. Let's start with Joseph, who says on this card, I really think you have to go with a dog and Benavidez, win or lose. I think he's going to outscore a lot of the fighters on the 3-round bouts.
There's potential. I mean, if it goes the distance, of course, they throw a lot of strikes. He will outproduce Davison Figueiredo. The thing is he has to get out of there after he lands shots. He can't sit there and wait for the counter strike because Davison will sleep him again. Trying to mix in takedowns. He didn't really have great success with that in the first fight. Davison has some good takedown defense, but what I think that started to do, even though it was early on in the fight, it was like first and second rounds when it ended, I think that can start to really weigh on Figueiredo and start to zap his energy because I don't think that he's a guy made for 5 rounds. Just starting to mix up the strategy. And I do think that Benavidez at 7,200, he doesn't really need too many points to pay off that salary.
Yeah, I mean, I think your only fear is what happens if Figueiredo wins a fight within the first 2 rounds.
Yeah.
Then that score is not what you're hoping for. But look, I would agree. If this thing goes 5 rounds, and even if Figueiredo were somehow to win a decision, even though I think if it goes to decision, I would much favor Benavidez in that, then I think he still would pay off very much. Jared says I was more confident in my underdog picks for Wednesday's card. I'm with you, Jared. As I was sitting here right before the show kind of looking at my lineups, I was like, man, I feel like I was a little more confident on Wednesday's card than I was tonight's card.
In some fights, I mean, we had some real gimmies. Like we had Chimaev, and then you had avoiding, both Phillips, you know what I'm saying? And then we know Cater personally. So I do like this card, though, and a lot stuck out to me, and a lot seemed pretty obvious. Now, I could be wrong on some spots. Like, I'm heavy on Kelvin Gastelum. I like him here, despite the reach disadvantage and size discrepancy. I just think it's a nice spot for him against Hermansson. But, Jack Hermansson at 8,000 can definitely break the slate with his grappling potential.
Appreciate the donation there by Christian, looking at Mark predicting the knockout there, and look, I think that's a fight that people are going to target him against Rafael. Obviously, Mark has done really well in these last 2 fights, and the thing that you've liked out of him, and we talk about this more, especially on the DK side of things, is going to takedown city. He's got 7 takedowns in his last fight, so you got to think that Mark could be potentially looking at there, because when you're talking about a guy who's facing a striking coach at Tiger Muay Thai.
Yeah, I mean, that should just mix it up. If you mix it up against Fiziev, I think you can have a lot of success. You just stand in front of him like a Thai boxer. He can match you. If you don't attempt takedowns, then you're really just allowing him to get into a groove. So as a guy that's predominantly a heavy striker, take him down, mix it up, start feinting a little bit, get him a little defensive, and then start to work your game. To Casey there is a very nice value at 8,500.
And we got him at 26% ownership on DraftKings, and over on FanDuel, we have him at 24% ownership, and at MVP, 3.5%. So maybe if you think he can go out there and get the finish, maybe that's a nice contrarian play there for you. Next up, this is from Ryan. He goes, who is your favorite play for knockout? Secondly, who are your 2 favorite plays on this slate?
All right, you start us, Jason. Who's knocking somebody out?
Knocking somebody out. Man,
I got 2 for you.
Potentially, I think I would look at Joe Duffy, just because Alvarez has got to get the fight to the ground to win that fight. He's got to make this a jiu-jitsu matchup. He can't make this a standing fight. He will win. I would look at Mark at TKO, and I would also look at Kelvin Gastelum with TKO with strikes on the ground. Those would be 3 I would look at.
Yeah, so I'm looking at 2 people that I think can really get a TKO or KO finish, and Gastelum sticks out to me at 8,200. Despite Jack Hermansson's experience, I think that he can really hurt him. I don't think that he can deal with the power. Also, somebody who's a little interesting is Montel Jackson, 9,100. I saw Brett Johnson, very talented grappler, overall good fighter, and has some tight boxing, but he was hurt to the body and to the legs pretty bad against Pedro Munoz. And I'm not trying to compare Montel Jackson to Pedro Munoz, but I think Montel Jackson's a lot faster and does hit a lot harder. So Montel Jackson's a nice little sleeper play for a knockout.
Yeah, in terms of favorite plays, Montel Jackson might be my favorite play. Obviously he's a big favorite. You got to pay up for him on either slate, where we're talking, DraftKings, FanDuel, or even on SuperDraft. My second favorite play would probably be Kelvin Gastelum.
I would agree with that. I like both of them.
Next up, Troy says no one on Felipe. Why? I feel like you kind of explained a lot of this on the strategy show, but for people who did not see that, kind of explain it.
Oh, man. Yeah. Okay. So this is a true unknown right here. And, if you want to toss some money on a guy that you have basically no footage of and don't know what he's been up to the past couple of years and, was on the juice, then you could look at Felipe, because maybe you don't believe in Sergey Spivak at 8,400 because under pressure, he hasn't really looked all that great. But, one of his losses was against Walt Harris, but he does have great takedowns. So he can clinch up with an aggressive opponent, take him to the mat and work some ground and pound, but also his pretty deceptive submission attempts. So Spivak at 8,400, I know that he's not such a sexy pick here at 8,400, but what have I seen from Felipe that proves that he can really fight at this level? I think he's going to have one round in him. So 7,800, could he come through? Of course. He could clip and hurt Spivak. I just don't want, outside of a puncher's chance, what does he really have? I've seen him, in some grappling turn. The guy just doesn't look well versed. He looks like a boxer and just a striker in an MMA fight. So Spivak is the better overall pick. If you're looking at leverage plays, you need to go against, the ownership. And one of these would be rostering Felipe, honestly, because I'm guessing Spivak will be pretty highly owned.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. Next question, low ownership on Duffy worth taking on FanDuel. So over on FanDuel, his salary is $20. We have his ownership at just under 29%.
That's not bad. I wouldn't mind that. But the thing with Duffy is I think he's going to come out and I think he's going to win. I just don't know if he pays off the DraftKings salary. But over on FanDuel at 20, I definitely like him more on FanDuel than I do DraftKings.
Looking at him on, to me, I don't think he's a play on SuperDraft at all at one time.
Nah, one times for me, it's not saying that he's not going to get the victory. If you look at Jack Shore was one times, and I wasn't too fond of that, multiplier on SuperDraft at one times last card either. But I don't know how you pay one times for Duffy.
Yeah, you look at the big favorites on this card on SuperDraft. So we look at Montel Jackson, 1.1 times, Duffy, 1 times, Grant Dawson, 1.05 times. Those would be your top three. And also Figueiredo at 1.1 times. When, I'm trying to build a SuperDraft lineup, what I'm looking for is, who's got some good value, who's got some good multipliers. We've talked about Gastelum at 1.25 times. He's someone I look at. Askarov at 1.45 times, I think, is someone you should look at on SuperDraft. Benavidez, how do you not look at him on SuperDraft at 1.4 times, especially if you think he's going to win that fight?
Yeah, I would agree. The Askarov and Pantoja fight, I just don't know if it's the best DFS performance. I would imagine Pantoja is going to throw some punches and try to pressure Askarov, but in saying that, he's got to be careful to not get taken down and controlled by a very dominant, wrestler. I know Pantoja has great jiu-jitsu, but he just has to be a little careful here. I just don't necessarily see this being the best DFS performance. I like Askarov at 7,400 as an upside play in hopes that he can just take Pantoja down over and over and over. So an upside play for sure.
Be sure to hit that thumbs up button right here on YouTube. That does help Pete and I out. Let's get those. Let's try to get up to about 125, 150. I really would appreciate that. Angry Hairline says, asking about Narimani's real chances worth a shot with one lineup on FanDuel.
I have plenty of lineups with Narimani, and it's because of what we spoke about on the strategy show. The obvious pick is Grant Dawson for sure. But in saying that, if I'm trying to have a GPP lineup looking for optimal potential, I need to fade a 9K or several 9K options and go the opposite route. And I know this sounds absolutely insane, But if Grant Dawson can't take down Nadia Hermani, Nadia Hermani is going to have a significant striking advantage. And you saw that in his last performance against Mike Grundy, where he has great takedowns. Grundy has great takedowns and was trying to take him down and he couldn't. And then Narimani hit him with some big shots and actually had him rock pretty well and could have finished him, but obviously he didn't. He got caught with a big shot. I don't think Dawson has that in his back pocket if he can't get the fight to the ground. So that's somebody that I've circled and sprinkled in a few lineups. Now, my expectations are tempered, obviously. I think Dawson's such an elite grappler, so if he does get him to the mat, it's going to be a long night for him.
Of course, this is Live Before Lock for UFC Fight Island number 2, and we are sponsored by SuperDraft. The future of daily fantasy sports has arrived. Experience SuperDraft's exclusive game mode multiplier. Say goodbye to salary restrictions and hello to lineup freedom. Use your fantasy sports knowledge to draft any player you want and build your very own dream team. Countless lineup possibilities let you experience daily fantasy sports the way you want. SuperDraft offers contests for PGA, NASCAR, and MMA so you can enjoy the best of DFS all year round. Sign up for SuperDraft today using the promo code Awesemo10, and it's $10 free on your first deposit of $10 or more, and $20 total free on your first deposit of $100 or more. Download in the App Store or play at superdraft.io. SuperDraft, no limits, more winning. Now, I do got to let you know about a flash sale we have going on right now, as we're having a flash sale for a $2 Awesemo Plus MMA weekly pass, so you can have access to all the great premium content and tools we have to offer for MMA DFS, including projections, ownership projections, and Awesemo's leading fire tool. That's 80% off the original price, so you got to take advantage of that Awesemo flash sale that is going on right now. So be sure to check that out on the Awesemo Twitter handle at Awesemo MMA DFS, also at Awesemo_com. Next up, let's go to Angry Hairline says Awesemo says leverage can come from a favorite whom everyone is picking. Dog is Lipski a good call? And No Tout Side has mentioned Carolina back. She is favored everywhere, even ESPN.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just because of Carolina's first matchup in the UFC. You can't really hold too much weight with that. I mean, it was somewhat impressive. She threw over 100 significant strikes, scored 108.5 DraftKings points, but against an accomplished grappler that can actually match you and punish you for attempting strikes like that in Ariane Lipski, you're not going to get the same. Now the worry is if this is a decision and it's a back and forth type of fight, who out produces the other. Small sample size for Carolina here, but she does throw she threw 6 strikes a minute and absorbed 3 strikes a minute. That was that one odd matchup. I don't know if she could replicate that performance. For me, if I'm looking at film and I'm looking at who's better and who actually isn't just coming out of the woods, out of nowhere, Lipski was a highly touted prospect and was, held in a high regard. So I like Lipski's chances here, despite what the stats are saying, despite her record in the UFC sitting at 1-2. She's had some tough competition. So she's not a bad play. I want to say she's one of my favorites.
Next up, Angry Hairline also says, he goes, how much weight do you put on the spinal fracture that Carolina had?
I mean, I think that could be a big reason why I'm not rostering her, but also the footage that I saw of her fighting. It's just like it's flailing. I mean, she's not crisp, whereas Ariane Lipski is definitely the more technical fighter. And in saying that, the most technical fighter doesn't always win, Jason, but I think it does in this case. Give me Ariane.
Also, something to mention about that flash sale that we have going on. Use the promo code FightIsland2 at checkout to use the promo code FightIsland2, if I can read correctly, at checkout. Head over to the Awesemo MMA DFS handle on Twitter, where the link of the offer is pinned. This will remain only for 15 minutes, so go ahead and grab it now. So I'll be up here for the next 10 minutes or so. So I wanted to make sure I got the right verbiage out there so everyone can take advantage of that offer over there. Next up, Becca, let's go to Ty says, would you say your cash core would be the same for FanDuel? Benavidez, Gastelum, Jackson. Here, a lot of people question Gastelum and his size in the 185-pound division.
Yeah, I mean, you can question his size. When has Gastelum ever had a size advantage over somebody, Jason? I mean, in his entire career. When has Gastelum ever been the bigger guy? I mean, even at 170, his body's really not built for that. So he's always facing an uphill battle on the stat sheet when it comes to body types. I just think the skill-wise, if Gastelum's able to keep this on the feet, say Hermansson can't get him down, Gastelum wins. 100% wins. If Hermansson can get him down, can Gastelum get back to his feet? That's the question. And I would like to say he can. I really do. The problem is I think you need this fight. So I do have a few Jack Hermansson lineups at 8K. The value's crazy on a guy that was on such a hot streak, but the hot streak came literally out of left field. And I think Gastelum's a part of that elite territory of the division.
So when you look at Jack Hermansson, you would say his best win is Jacare Souza. That's a win against Jacare Souza in 2019. That isn't the 2012, 2014 Jacare Souza. Then I say what's his best win in the UFC? So these are UFC wins. Scott Askham, Alex Nicholson, Brad Scott, Talis Lee, Gerald Mearshart, David Branch, Jacare Souza.
Got to be David Branch. I mean, and I know that doesn't really say much because David Branch never really materialized to anything in the UFC. I guess outside of that, you look at the Gerald Mearshart. But Ian Heinisch just stopped, Gerald Mearshart pretty quickly. So I don't know. I think if Gastelum loses this fight, Jason, I think 185 literally I don't know. He has to. The UFC won't allow him to make 170 anymore. But he's too small for 85, so he's stuck. I don't know he's in like a crossroads, but I think he wins here.
It's a bad situation for him. He's always going to be at a size disadvantage. We talked about that on the strategy show on Thursday. Do want to let you know, I was just told SuperDraft is training to have overlay in their MMA contest tonight. So you definitely got to go over to SuperDraft and build that dream team lineup that you want to put together. As we tell you about SuperDraft on all of the shows here. Next up. Ty says, is Gordon your top value option?
Not for me. Not for me. Just because it's like we mentioned, the 125-pound division. It's going to be a close fight. I don't think it's one-sided. Gordon has dropped some fights outside the UFC pretty handedly, and in plenty of fights he's been rocked. In saying that, I do like Gordon in the matchup. I think I like him to edge it out. He has the jiu-jitsu advantage. Striking-wise, he's somewhat of a defensive liability. I think in the 7K range, somebody that I really like is, obviously Benavidez, but it's tough. 7K is so ugly. Askarov's a guy that I'm turning to a lot.
Yeah, it's, as I was kind of building some lineups, I was, you got to find those low price options. I mean, you got to take some chances on some guys.
You can't be happy with your lineup if you're playing GPPs. If you're cash, you definitely need to roster people you feel comfortable with. But as far as GPP, you have to take a shot somewhere. I mean, okay, Fiziev against DeCasey, don't like that. Carolina, 7,900, don't like that necessarily. Askarov, okay, he can do it. Ibrahimov, he's somebody that maybe we haven't talked about enough, and he's facing a guy that you don't really know. There's so many unknowns, and we've seen that Ibrahimov can throw crazy volume and is aggressive. It's just ultimately his opponents get the better of him, and maybe at 7,300, he's that kind of upside play you're looking at as a guy that can go out there and actually fight really, really hard to get you a quick finish, but I don't see that happening in that matchup.
Yeah. Next up, T-Bird says, this is an interesting card. I have a hard time being confident on any MVP spot on FanDuel.
I see. I don't. I have plenty of people that I feel pretty confident in. And I might be alone on Kelvin Gastelum Island. I guess are you with me on Kelvin Gastelum?
Yeah, I am.
What's your thoughts on it? You think that he does the same exact thing, stuffs takedowns, beats him up on if he gets a finish?
I don't know if the finish comes.
Yeah.
But I feel pretty confident. I mean, it was one of those things I was thinking earlier today, I'm like, man, am I overlooking Jack Hermansson? But I think the biggest thing I look at is I go, look who Kelvin's fought. Kelvin's fought the elite of this division, okay?
Yep.
And, and he's had success against, you look at the fight against Anya Schneider. There's moments that fight he had success.
Yeah.
I mean, he's, close to winning that fight, when the final round, Israel takes over. So that to me it's Gastelum is, I've got a lot of shares of him. And look, there's a lot of value for him.
Yeah, I think 8,200 is crazy. I think the 8K for either one of them, I don't think you can go wrong, but I'm favoring Gastelum. Yeah.
Troy mentions Felipe 100% low ownership GPP winning lineup. Yeah, I mean, look, if Felipe wins that fight, yeah, he's going to be the optimal lineup because he's going to win by knockout in the first round.
Yeah, I mean, they say that he's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, but I don't know about that from the tape I've seen. And also, I think Spivak holds a big height reach, and I actually think that he's the stronger guy in this matchup. So it's just hard for me to put my money on a guy that I haven't seen at all. So I like Spivak.
Daniel says top 2 to 3 high upside low ownership plays for GPP on DraftKings versus FanDuel.
Okay, say that one more time. I'm sorry.
Top 2 to 3 high upside low own plays for GPP on DraftKings versus FanDuel.
Okay, DraftKings versus FanDuel. I mean, if you look at Gastelum at 8,200 on FanDuel, is 17, so you get a significant discount on DraftKings. Lipsky's pretty. I like her on both sites. She has a lot of upside for me. You have a nice savings for Jackson at 19 on FanDuel. Sarukian's kind of middle of the pack that could land one shot and change the fight against Davi Ramos. And I think Davi Ramos is going to be a popular. Davi Ramos and Brett Johns are going to be two of the most popular 7K options because you've seen them succeed pretty well in the UFC. And they have that GPP upside of takedowns and potential submissions.
On the FanDuel side of things, would you rather have Dawson or Jackson, or both at $19?
I think Jackson's more likely to get a stoppage.
Yeah.
Even though Johns hasn't been finished in the UFC. I saw Pedro Munoz. He was so close to finishing him several times, and I think that Montel can hit him harder and faster.
Jace asks, Askarov or Ramos on FanDuel?
I say Askarov. Not the best site to play Askarov on, but do you agree with me on that?
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, of course, as my screen just changes on me, so let me kind of scroll through here to get the where I was at. Joseph says Benavidez is only lock. Your favorite word for him?
I wouldn't consider him a lock, but I have a ton of Joe B. So definitely not an easy matchup.
Myron, and this is kind of the conversation we were just having a second ago. Can you afford to fade the co-main event?
Could. I have in a few lineups. I feel like I have more of that fight than I should. Because Jack's not a scrub. Kelvin's not a scrub. Competition. They faced good competition. Gastelum a little bit more of the elite competition. But they're very well-schooled fighters. And sometimes when it's a closely contested bout, finishes are less likely.
We got asked a question about the opening fight of the night main event from Cameron. Says, do we expect a finish in the Spivak Felipe fight? My short answer is yes. Just to let you know. So the prop bet, the fight goes to decision, is plus 150.
Yeah, I think it's a finish. I do. I think whether it's a finish or not, you're getting a good performance out of somebody for DFS wise.
Morgan said, is the reach and submission strength of Hermansson a big problem? Here's the thing. Can Hermansson get it there?
Right.
Because I look at Gastelum, when I think of his wrestling, I look at it as more of like the Justin Gaethje version. Doesn't really use it offensively, it's more defensively.
Yeah, it's like a Chuck Liddell type of wrestling. I wonder if Gastelum can stuff all of Jack's takedowns. The problem is maybe Jack only needs one. And reach advantage on the ground comes to submission attempts. Jack is really, really good at going for the neck. Great arm in guillotines. He just hunts the neck so well. I mean, look what he did to David Branch. That was incredible. Basically had his back and then decided I'm going to go for a guillotine when I could probably throw the other hook in and go for a rear naked choke. So it was really deceptive, and that's where he gets a ton of wins. That's his bread and butter. I don't know. I don't know how Gastelum's going to be able to handle that. I mean, Weidman took him down several times and ultimately choked him out, but that's Weidman. I think Weidman would scrape Jack Hermansson in a grappling competition.
Yeah, of course, they were supposed to fight, and we'll see. Maybe that fight ultimately happens at some point.
I hope so.
As Weidman's got another fight booked. You talk about, Chris Weidman. Go look at his record since he became UFC middleweight champion. It has been a rough road for him.
Yes, it has.
Cameron says, what are the chances Brett Johns gets a quick submission?
He could. Now, let's talk about Brett Johns because he definitely needs some respect. He's 16-2 and he's 4-2 in the UFC. And Montel Jackson was in some bad spots and was almost submitted by his previous opponent. So he was stuck in several guillotines and really fatigued throughout the fight, especially in the second and third round. He went for it all in the first round and was close to finishing his opponent. Now, if Brett Johns has that same guillotine, I think he might finish him, and that's the truth. And I think Montel Jackson's just going to be a little bit more calculated and pick his shots a little bit better and not get a little overzealous. Johns definitely is a submission threat. He's not a TKO threat. Submission threat for sure. One scramble's all it takes. Johns is more decorated on the mat, but against a powerful wrestler. People forget that Jackson's a very good wrestler. Ricky Simon took him down over and over. Ricky Simon also took Ray Borg down over and over and over. So I know Ray Borg's undersized, but the point is that he's a very good wrestler, and that was also his debut fight in the UFC. So I'm not trying to hang that performance over his head. I like Jackson in the matchup.
CS Yates goes, thoughts on Arman Sarukian? He's projected bottom 3 ownership as a favorite, reminding me on the Muhammad a couple weeks ago. I see CS Yates is checking out Alex's projections, and
Nice.
Over on DraftKings, Alex has at 14% ownership, and over on the FanDuel side of things, he has him at 12% ownership, and over on SuperDraft, as I make my way through all my pieces of paper here, he has got him projection of 80 points.
Yeah. I'm saying, I can see that happening. Davi Ramos is tough, and we'll match him on the feet for a little bit until he starts to get lit up. And then as long as Sarukian doesn't attempt to take down Davi Ramos, which I think it's just part of his game. I think he will. He just needs to avoid the submissions. If he can do that, I like his chances a lot.
Yeah. Next up, Joe Rucker. He goes, my strategy, target young, dumb, and reckless. Spivak, Felipe, Gordon, Albazi. Ignore experienced and talented and smart. Mark and Hermansson. Figure it worked in college. Got to work in MMA.
It's not a bad strategy. So what he's saying, there's some truth to it. And I wouldn't say the dumb part, but I would definitely say the reckless and the inexperienced fights. That's the ones that tend to end in finishes more often than not. That's why in the closer you get up the ladder, the less likely finishes are to happen. So like in the Gastelum Hermansson fight, you could be looking at a close decision. Spivak Felipe, I would honestly be surprised if that goes the distance.
Jason Miller goes, single entry, main card only in FanDuel. Only 4 fighters now. Stacked main event with a 50-50 chance to go the distance.
The problem is Benavidez's best path to victory is by Figueiredo gassing. If Figueiredo gasses, Benavidez obviously has a legitimate shot of winning. And if Figueiredo gasses, if you stack that fight, does he really pay off that $9K salary? I'm going to lean towards no. I wouldn't think that his output 2.5, unless he starts to go and get takedowns and transitions on the mat. But Joe B's really good on the ground and was in some horrible spots against Figueiredo and got out.
So looking at the prop bets on the main event, Figueiredo wins by TKO KO minus 110. Benavidez wins by TKO KO plus 1,200.
Oh my.
Figueiredo by submission plus 725. Benavidez by submission plus 1505. Figueiredo by decision plus 435. Benavidez by decision plus 275.
My goodness. So the odds are kind of disrespecting Joe Benavidez, man, like big time. But it makes sense in regards to finishes. I don't see. It's hard to imagine him TKOing Figueiredo outside of getting in a dominant position, like spinning behind him and throwing some shots. Submission-wise, does have a nasty guillotine, but I just don't see that happening. Either decision or bust, I think.
Jason mentioned about playing single entry. I love playing single entry tournaments.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to deal with every possibility and every outcome, and you got one shot. I mean, I played plenty of them, and you wish the top prizes were a little bit better. That's the only thing.
I mean, I can tell you, if in golf, I played a single entry. I think it was a $12 entry. Maybe it was $15,000 was first prize, but that's in a big pool though. But it's still a single entry.
Yeah.
Look, I still play, GPPs with, multiple entries, but when I start reserving contests as the week starts, single entries is what I look for. I look for those $12 single entries and up.
There's just not enough of them. If there was so many of them, I would probably only play those, but that's why that big prize, 150K to first, is very enticing.
We're all chasing that money. We're all chasing it.
We're hitting it tonight.
Let's see here. Jackson with the knockout. I don't know about that one.
I think so. And that could come to the body.
A comment says Duffy TKOs a lot of angry bettors.
Yeah, right. I think.
Well, the problem is he has been the favorite in his losses.
Yeah, I mean, the guy beat Conor McGregor. That's why. That's kind of his feather in his cap, and maybe that's even why he got a shot in the UFC. I mean, he lost trying to get onto the UFC in the Ultimate Fighter. But the guy's skilled. He's really only lost to who? James Vick, Dustin Poirier. You're talking about ranked guys.
Andrew Casey, yeah.
Andrew Casey. Andrew Casey looked better than ever. But you're not talking about scrubs.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about, Duffy to win by TKO KO is plus 500. Duffy
He's priced up like he needs to get a finish, though, Jason. That's my point of why I'm not too big on him. 9,300. Say the odds again for a finish, please.
Duffy by TKO KO is plus 500. By submission, plus 330. If you just want to take Duffy inside the distance, you give him at plus 180. The prop bet that would, on the Alvarez side, I think, look, to me, if Joel Alvarez wins that fight, he wins by submission.
Yeah.
It's plus 700.
That's what I'm saying. So, like, the guy, let me look. Let me pull up my sheet. Where are we looking? Duffy Alvarez. So, Alvarez is 16-2 with 16 finishes. Duffy is 16-4 at 14 finishes. Now, Alvarez is going to be submission or bust, in my opinion. I don't think he can outclass Duffy for 3 rounds. I think he's just too skilled.
Yeah. Elliot asked about a 2-fight parlay money line, please. I would look at. So if you're only doing 2 fights, so I don't want to necessarily take a big favorite because then your odds just aren't going to be great. I would look at Kevin Gastelum and Mark DeCasey.
Yeah, so I would go Casey, probably one of the ones I feel most confident in. Just because say he's struggling, striking wise, I know he can take down Figueiredo now. Like, you know what I'm saying? I might look Casey and Lipsky, honestly. The girl who broke her back. So
Kicks Good says Ramos wins by submission, better dog than Alvarez.
Equal, I would say. Ramos has the grappling credentials and had beat Gilbert Burns in a grappling match. So with the eye test, you would say that Ramos has a better shot than Alvarez, but I think it's pretty close.
Someone says I got Spivak winning. More experience will play the part here.
Yeah, don't know. You really don't know. Okay, so what I don't get, right? Felipe, how's this guy in the UFC, Jason? You look at his record, not impressive, doesn't finish too many people. I mean, he finishes okay people, but for that division, he doesn't really have too many finishes. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of heavyweights usually have a ton of finishes. The guy popped. Who does he know? He has to know somebody in order to be getting the shot. He has to be like somebody's boy to be getting this shot, because on paper and from the footage I'm seeing, he does not belong in the UFC.
Yeah, I mean, he did have that suspension, but they kept with him. Usually that's going to come down to, that's going to be management, or maybe he's got, a fighter friend that kind of helps play that a little bit. Gastelum or Roman, FanDuel GPP?
I like Gastelum. So many unknowns with Roman Dolidze.
Someone put in chat about asking for everyone's FanDuel captain. I think Montel Jackson's going to be a very popular pick there.
Yeah.
I mean, look, can you avoid, Casey, I think would be a good one. I mean, look, as much as it's tough for me to trust Joe Duffy, but man, if you're looking for a contrarian MVP, he might be a contrarian MVP.
Yeah, that's a good point. Very good point. You got to think of guys that are going to be defending takedowns and then punishing their opponents with punches and kicks and everything. So, like, Jack Hermansson's going to be trying to take down Kelvin Gastelum a lot. So maybe KG is a guy that you can look at as a sneaky captain to get those extra points for you. I would say John's going to be looking to do the same thing to Jackson. And then, Jacasey gets Fiziev. Maybe Jacasey finishes him.
CSG8 says, out of the big favorites tonight, who has the biggest chance to be upset? I gotta think you're going to pick Figueiredo to be upset.
Yeah, I think so.
And I mean, look, Grant Dawson, I think you got to have a little. I get the buyer beware if he doesn't get the fight to the ground.
I'm telling you, man, I got plenty of narrow money, and it's just in case what I saw in film happens. Do I have faith in it? No.
Morgan asked us for us to go over the Roman fight. We talked about this on the strategy show. So Roman had a USADA issue, so he hasn't fought in 2 years. Basically, it sounds like he just turned on everyone when it came to his use. And he got his opponent, who is 0-2 in the UFC, was a guy that was highly thought of coming into the UFC, coming off M1. To me, this is probably for his opponent, it's you lose, you're probably done in the UFC. Even though I've heard the UFC's not, even though I've heard that the belief is the UFC's not going to cut fighters at this time.
I don't know about that. I don't think that's. How is that guy getting like under a microscope? But this dude Felipe isn't, Jason. That's unfair. No, I don't think he's on the chopping block.
But are you all over Roman in that fight?
Not really. I'm a little underweight on it because I just don't. So, like, Roman's got good finishes, right? But we haven't seen him really face too much adversity in his fights. And Ibragimov throws a ton, and his fight IQ is pretty low. So, if Dolidze can't match it on the feet and he can't take him down, maybe Ibragimov at 7,300 is a guy with an upside pick that can get you a ton of volume and potentially a decision. It's tough to say, though, because Dolidze is 6-0 at 6 finishes, and we have seen Ibragimov not handle adversity too well.
Yeah, it is definitely something to pay attention to. Be sure to hit that thumbs up button here for Live Before Lock here on YouTube. And, of course, we are sponsored by SuperDraft. The future of daily fantasy sports has arrived. Experience SuperDraft's exclusive game mode multiplier. Say goodbye to salary restrictions and hello to lineup freedom. Use your fantasy sports knowledge to draft any player you want and build your very own dream team. Countless lineup possibilities. lets you experience daily fantasy sports the way you want. SuperDraft offers contests for PGA, NASCAR, and MMA so you can enjoy the best of DFS all year round. Sign up for SuperDraft today using the promo code Awesemo10 and it's $10 free on your first deposit of $10 or more and $20 total free on your first deposit of $100 or more. Download the App Store or play at superdraft.io. SuperDraft, no limits, more winning. Of course, be sure to be following Awesemo on Instagram and Facebook, as we will be providing free Awesemo Plus player projections for PGA, NASCAR, and MMA, and more on our Instagram page at Awesemo_com and our Awesemo Facebook page daily. So make sure to give them a follow. And the two fighters that we are featuring for tonight's UFC Fight Island 2, that'd be Davison Figueiredo and Grant Dawson. So be sure to hit that like there on Instagram and Facebook for Awesemo_com. Next up, let's Jared. I love this comment by Jared, by the way. Jared, smart man. Spivak Felipe is the first fight of the night. Could end your night early.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're on the correct side of that, though, Jason, you could be. I wonder how much ownership Spivak's going to have. That's the thing. How many people actually are targeting this fight, or they're going to take this unknown 7,800 Felipe? You know, that you have to think, right? Sometimes people who are playing in DraftKings like to agree with salaries, so they know that they don't like the low end 7K options. So they'll start to really tailor their own personal ownership to the high 7K. So maybe 7,800 Felipe is a guy a lot of people are targeting. I just don't feel. I think he's got one round in him, and that's it.
Yeah, we've got Spivak 32%, both on ownership percentage on DraftKings and FanDuel.
Pretty high. That's pretty high. I mean, if you're not impressed with Spivak and you know something that I don't about Felipe, roster him, I guess. I think I have like two with him. It's almost like I just burned my money because I don't have any expectations with that guy.
And you mentioned that when you were doing your tape study, it was just hard to find tape of him.
I found his Instagram, and it's not even like it's his name. It's like, I don't know. I don't know how I found his Instagram, Jason. Super creeper. I don't know, but I did. And even on film, it's just like, that's all I got for him.
Chandler says last piece of his FanDuel cash, Gordon or Carolina?
I can't roster the chick that broke her back. Watch her go out and win, Jason. I swear. If this girl goes out and wins,
man, it's getting you to take the glasses off as you think about it.
Yeah, that's how much this girl's got me stressing. I hope that doesn't happen. I really have like no Carolina. She's 6-1. Who is she? She's not. She beat Cachoeira. Lipsky literally is the person they want. You have to think of a matchmaker too, right? They want if their prospects are starting to struggle a little bit, they're going to give them some gimme fights too. They want them to kind of rebound. It's not always cut and dry like they like to say. If they want to give everybody the toughest fights possible, they don't want to ruin prospects, or they don't want to ruin pretty faces or something that they can get marketing behind. And Lipsky's definitely the A side of the fight. Yeah,
no question. How would you split your ownership of Spivak and Narimani?
So Narimani's a total dart throw. Total GPP dart throw, but I have plenty of it in case Dawson can't get it to the mat. 7,000 flat is stupid low if it's a stand-up fight. I think I have plenty of Spivak over Narimani.
Next up, is Duffy worth the salary?
Nope, I don't think so.
Jimmy says, what is the lowest scoring fighter in your opinion, and what might be one of the highest scoring fighters tonight?
You answer that. Let's see. I want to see what you're going to say.
Lowest scoring fighter. To me, it is the loser of Spivak Felipe, just because I think you got a good chance that fight ends in the first round, and that the loser might only have like 5 or 10 points. In terms of might be the highest scoring fighters tonight. So you're looking at who could break the slate.
Yeah.
God, do I dare say Montel Jackson?
I love him. I love Montel Jackson. And I think it's because I know two of Montel Jackson's previous opponents. You look at Andre Sukumtat, you look at Rico Tushulo. Like, we know those guys a lot, Jason. And I can see what Montel Jackson brings to the table. He's a very powerful and vicious striker. I've seen Brett Johns hurt to the body. Outside of Brett Johns getting him to the mat, I don't see how he wins the fight. And even then, it's not like, literally, if you're rostering Johns, you're hoping Jackson just gasses out and gives up.
Jared says, William says, what dog do we have the most confidence in?
Well, I like Benavidez, and I think I might be alone on it. And, if you like Figueiredo, good for you. I'm not hating on you at all. I got plenty of Figueiredo too. But as far as underdog, I think people are going to be surprised when my boy Askarov wins.
I would point to Malcolm Gordon. My only concern is Gordon on the feet. Is the only concern.
It's a liability for sure. Liability for sure.
Chances Gordon win. We just mentioned, your concern is if it's a fight that plays out on the feet. That's got to be the concern.
I mean, he's not a bad striker, Jason. Like, he's a good striker, but he's a defensive liability. The thing to note though is that Gordon was scheduled to face somebody else, was he not?
Gordon took this fight 2 weeks ago,
but he was scheduled to fight a different opponent.
No, he was scheduled to fight in Brave. And Brave let him out of his contract. He was going to be a part of that flyweight tournament.
Right, yeah, I know that, but hold on 1 second. I feel like I'm right on this. Keep talking. Let's see.
Well, I'll go. While you look that up, I'll go to the next question, which is
I was right. I was right. He was supposed to fight Alexander Doshalchuk on the same exact card. So he's known about the bout a little bit longer than Amir Albazi. Amir Albazi is the replacement in this situation. How much you take that into consideration, though?
Albazi is actually a part of the next question, which is who scores more, Jacasey, Carolino, or Albazi?
Jacasey.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a popper play.
I like him, man. Watch, I swear, if Fiziev actually comes through, he's like 2 fights too late for me, okay? Because, I was all over him on his debut, and it was just like, what are we doing here?
Montoya says, do you think both Benavidez and Figueiredo would be good to have just because it goes the distance and both have lots of significant strikes?
So typically, right, if I'm ignoring the stats that I'm staring at right now, I would say that this is a tailor-made matchup for cash and potential for GPP stack. Because if it does go 5 rounds, it's a lighter division. In lighter divisions, you tend to see more volume, more scrambles, more action, closely contested fights, and that's what you need in order for a stack to work. In this situation, though, Jason, you're thinking about Figueiredo's gas tank. Can Figueiredo last for 5 rounds? And I'm a little unsure about that.
Here's the problem you have with Dawson Figueiredo with significant strikes. He landed, if you take out the fight where he landed 67 significant strikes against Alexander Pantoja, the most significant strikes he's landed in any other fight, 31 against Joseph Morales.
Yeah, it's a 3-round fight, right? Those are all 3-round fights. You got to try to...
Yeah, he's never been in a fight. His first 5-round fight was the fight against Benavidez back in February.
So he got, what'd you say, 60?
So let me just throw. So his first fight against Marco Beltran, 2nd round win, 17 significant strikes.
Yeah.
His split decision against Jared Brooks, 19 significant strikes, 3-round decision.
He gets second round power.
Yeah. If you look at, let's just look at the 3-round fights that he's gone to, the ones that he's gone the distance. So Brooks, 19 significant strikes. Against Formiga, 14 significant strikes. And against Pantoja, 67 significant strikes.
Okay, so let's try to do this and predict this. Say it goes 5 rounds. What do you give him? 100 significant strikes? Okay, 50 points, decision. 80, give him 2 takedowns, call it 90 points at 9K. It's all right. I mean, it's all right. It's nothing. It's not like exceeding salary.
Someone asked, bad idea to fade the Lipsky Carolina fight.
I mean, that's a headache written all over. We talked about that in the strategy show. You're going to be stressing. You're going to be sweating. And you'll be like, who's this chick that comes out of left field? Carolina is able to outpoint. Man, I'm not dealing with it, Jason, but I'm also not rostering a chick who broke her back in Carolina. I'm just not doing it.
Grant or Figueiredo on FanDuel?
Grant or Figueiredo? What do you
I would be more comfortable in Grant.
Got to think of the site though. FanDuel. I think FanDuel kind of works for Figueiredo. I'd actually say Figueiredo, and you know that I'm on Joe B.
Adam says, I'm not sexist or anything, but low-level female fights are not to be trusted. And we talk in female. The thing is always concerning about female is it's a high rate of decision. It's a higher rate of decision than male fights, and that's something that I mentioned a little earlier in the show. Where so at female at 115 pounds, the decision rate is 69.3%. At 125 on the female side, 64%. Male side, 58%. At 135 on the female side, the decision rate is 58%. It's 50% on the male side. And then at 145 pounds, obviously on the female side, it's a very small sample rate. That's at 45%. On the men's side, 54.7%.
I like that. I mean, it's a nice little comparison. And I think it's also that in those lower level type of fights, strange things happen. You know what I'm saying? Like, strange things happen. Let's even use McCann and Santos. You know what I'm saying? So who knows? I'm just, if I can cross off in process of elimination, get rid of a few fighters to help me consolidate who I'm targeting, that's kind of like my strategy.
Ramos or Gordon?
I'd say Gordon. I think Ramos, outside of a submission, I don't see him having a legitimate chance to beat Sarukian.
Be sure to hit that thumbs up. Really do appreciate that. Let's try to get those thumbs up to over 150. Main event predictions. I'm going with Figueiredo. I think he gets a stoppage via strikes. But I do have a lineup with Joe B. I actually have a couple lineups with Joe B.
I think Benavidez decision. That's just me, though. I think I could be alone on the island. I'm not saying don't target Figueiredo, but come on, Joe B. Let's do this.
Jared says Dawson is too expensive.
Not really. I mean,
I don't think he's too expensive. I think it's justified.
And it's me coming from a guy that has plenty of narrow money just because of everybody on the fight, everybody on the slate, right? Dawson has that break the slate potential. He really does. He's got that Kamaru Usman, Colby Covington type of takedowns, transitions, and volume. So I think it's warranted, honestly.
Aaron asked, best $14 FanDuel fighter tonight.
$14.
I'll go Malcolm Gordon.
It's either Ibrahimov or Gordon. I'll go Gordon, too.
Cameron, is Gastelum Hermansson a must-own fight?
Usually that 8,200, 8,000 is a headache and pivotal for a lot of optimals. I will say that the lower priced fighter in that price range is usually more popular. I think you could see some decently heavy ownership on Jack Hermansson by everybody trying to pound in some top end guys and then pay as minimal as possible. So that's why they'll just get that 8,000 left for Hermansson.
Guy asked, he says, top 2 cash plays. Doesn't say what platform though.
I like Jacasey a lot. And I would say Dawson outside of the odd scenario where you can't get it to the mat.
Mark says, you think there's a 0% chance Hermansson can pitter-patter his way to a decision to win on the feet?
He doesn't beat him on the feet.
Adam says don't get the Gordon love. We've kind of talked about this. I think that the concern you have with Gordon is that the fight stays on the feet.
Yeah. I don't really have a read on Albazi too much, though. Like, he's good. They're almost mirror fighters as far as, like, skill-wise. They're close. It's going to be a closely contested bout. And it's 100. How many, we said it the other day, how many 125-pound fights do you want in your lineups? You got Figueiredo Benavidez, that's 1. You got Lipsky Carolina, that's 2. Pantoja Askarov, that's 3. And then the Gordon matchup, that's 4. You can't roster more than 2 of them, can you?
Yeah. Is Narimani the best value?
It's scary. It's an uphill battle for sure. Uphill battle. Definitely not a logical value. I think a more logical value would be Askarov via wrestling.
Travis says he's got Rafael for the upsets. Any thought on that?
I'd be pretty surprised, honestly. And you might see decent ownership up that high 7K range like we spoke of people thinking DraftKings has it right.
Next up, Jonathan says, Jacasey, Jackson, Roman, parlay. How's that look? I feel pretty good about that one.
The Roman's tough though, Jason. Like, What are you going to get out of Roman? I wouldn't put too much faith into him. I mean, wouldn't you rather pick Spivak against a guy that is a new?
Yeah, no, that's understandable.
I think I'd pivot to something like that where I could get behind somebody I've actually seen a ton of footage on, and Felipe really has one round in him.
Mark says, why do I feel Fight Pass only puts up fights that make guys look like monsters? All the Albazi and Gordon fights they made them look like badass, except one Gordon loss. They can only show fights they have access to. They have to pay for those fights. So if they don't have a deal with the promotion that fight took place in, you're not going to see the fight. That is just the simple answer on that. When's Montel Jackson fighting? Montel Jackson would be the 4th fight of the night, part of the prelims.
Probably what, 6:30?
Yeah. Main event goes 5 rounds?
I think so.
Marcos goes, I think Dawson is a fluke. I totally disagree with that.
He's really skilled, man. And
there's a reason he's 15-1. And there's a reason why the UFC has been looking at this kid for probably about 2+ years before they signed him. They were just waiting for him to develop.
Yeah. Yeah. He's a legitimate problem in that division, especially grappling-wise.
Would you agree with this, that you do not need to pay up for Figueiredo on FanDuel?
22 is a little much. But in saying that, FanDuel scoring favors Figueiredo's style, so I don't think it's too much.
Brandon says, how much is too much salary to leave on the table? I am trying to get creative, but is $1,800 too much to leave on the table, trying to not be replicated?
You want to know how much salary I have left over, Jason?
How much?
In a few lineups, I have like $4,000 left over.
Really?
Yeah, I really do. I really do. And obviously,
so I'm guessing the core is Benavidez and Narimani?
Yeah, that's on some contrarian GPP lineups. So obviously, you need lineups that nobody's going to have, and you need a ton of salary left over, and just the right formula. That's not a cash lineup at all. It's a throw a dart and think that this little mixture of fighters could make it work, and that's definitely the core there.
Well, look at last week. When you look at the optimal lineups, 5 of the 6 fighters were on the prelims, and what was it, 3 or 4 of them were underdogs?
Yep, that's what I'm saying. So you have to remember that the odds and the salaries and all that stuff, they don't follow them into the cage. At the end of the day, the bell rings, it's a fight, anything can happen. It's crazy. You're going to see the most variance in any sports when it comes to MMA fights. It's just the truth. One punch,
one takedown changes everything.
You slip on a logo. Somebody commits honestly, it's the craziest thing to predict. But that's why sometimes it doesn't lie.
Wednesday, the Leonardo Santos fight, he has literally got his opponent knocked down on his feet.
God, we didn't talk about that.
Apparently, Mark Goddard wants this guy to die in the cage.
Yeah.
and as someone who at the lineup I was really focusing on had Santos in it, and I'm like, come on, Mark, come in, stop it. Like his opponent was out on his feet, so then his opponent knees him in the nuts twice, and hits an illegal knee on him as well.
You know,
he took 2 points away from him, but because when Santos was just going for it in the second round, he gassed out completely.
Yeah.
At that point, I'm like, oh, go, here you go.
Bogatov was getting desperate, and that goes to show you how hurt he was round one. And I'm pretty sure he sat on a stool and his corner just backhanded him. So I think that kind of woke him up. But crazy stuff happens in MMA fights, but you have to enjoy it.
We are a society where we remember, the things that happened recently. I've seen this comment in the chat a little bit here is people are relating Kelvin Gastelum's reached disadvantage to Molly McCann's reached advantage from Wednesday.
Stop it. Not even comparable. Not even comparable. If you go back and you look at any of Tyler Santos's film, A, who'd she fight? B, she looked horrible in the UFC. She looked like she was having an anxiety attack. Obviously, hindsight's 20/20, and it's like, oh man, why was everybody heavy on Molly McCann? Now, Molly McCann standing up looked great, hands looked good. She just got outpowered, and I would like to see if in a while if her opponent pops for anything, because she was just absolutely dominating her.
I'm just looking at my Twitter account to try to get those questions in here. Jonathan says, how much does a Benavidez loss hurt the division as a whole? It's got the least amount of contenders and potential faces, and it's even more with no man's land than when DJ was king. Look, I mean, there's a percentage of the fan base that's just never going to get down for 125-pound fights.
It's true. It is true. It's happy. I'm happy to see the division still last. And, you think about where the division was at, of how it was going to get scrapped, and then Cejudo comes in, and maybe the UFC realizes, you know what? A lot of fighters and a lot of fans actually like this division. It's exciting. I think you see some of the highest level. And when Mighty Mouse was around, easily one of my favorite fighters.
Top 3 FanDuel MVP picks.
Casey, Gastelum, and Jackson.
So on DraftKings, I got one captain contest that I'm in.
Ooh, yeah.
I put Casey as my MVP, as my captain.
I like it. I think that between striking and grappling, he could even get a finish, and I wouldn't be surprised.
And I did take Joe B in that one.
Oh,
5,400 in the captain contest.
That's what I'm saying. Like, the disrespect is ridiculous. Outside of him getting knocked out by Figueiredo and Mighty Mouse, the guy can take a shot. He really can. Yes, I know he's 35, but come on. It's 125 pounders.
Yeah. Core GPP on DraftKings.
So I like Spivak a little bit. Somebody said Brokeback is going to break the slate. I hope not. Spivak 8,400. I have plenty of Jacasey and Lipsky too. Fading Brokeback.
Ashcroft or Gordon last spot on DraftKings.
Ooh, I wish I knew the contest. So I think I'm alone on several of these fights this week, and I'm going to say Ashcroft.
How do you think Ramos will win, and how confident? I think if he wins, I think it's decision.
No way. Ramos over Sarukian?
Yeah.
Get out of here.
I'm not saying I'm picking him. I'm saying if he were to win, how he wins.
He's got to submit him. How's he going to beat Sarukian for 3 rounds? You're talking about a guy who was able to defend takedowns against Islam Makhachev and get back to his feet and go for takedowns against Islam Makhachev. So outside of a submission win for Ramos, I do not see him winning a decision.
Who is the trap play of the day? Molly McCann S trap.
Oh my God. Maybe it's Lipsky against Carolina. It also could honestly be the Dolidze against Ibrahimov, because you don't know what you're going to get. You don't know what you're going to get from two fighters, Dolidze and Felipe.
Need one: Lipski, Askarov, Ramos, or Niramani.
Lipski, Askarov, Ramos, and Niramani. Lipski. I like Lipski. Come on.
Dawson or Jacasey, FanDuel cash.
Jacasey. I'm not hating on Dawson. I don't want everybody to think I'm hating on Dawson, because I'm not. I have plenty of Dawson. You just got to pick spots that you want to target ownership. I will say that Dawson's probably the highest owned fighter on the entire slate.
Who is the best two above $16 on FanDuel GPP?
Above 16? Sarukian gets a finish. That's nice. I like Jackson at 19 a lot. Dawson at 19 he could break the slate with that. And Jacasey. Gastelum. You got so many options. I mean, above that. So I would say for me, it's Gastelum and Jacasey.
Someone says UFC wants Benavidez to win so he can celebrate with Megan. Excuse me.
Probably.
Core FanDuel plays.
Jacasey? Jacasey better win, bro. I swear, because I've been saying his name quite a bit today.
All right, Jacasey or Pantoja?
Jacasey, bro. I'm not on Pantoja today.
Someone says judge's decision will be with Benavidez. Here's the thing about this.
That's a good point.
These aren't the questionable judging we've seen on these Fight Island shows.
Yes.
Let's say that. I think as a fighter, you cannot be confident that these judges will score the fight the way it should be scored.
How have they been scoring it, though?
Well, first off, we had the ref who apparently doesn't like ground fighting at all on Wednesday.
he got a fighter in stand up.
You got the
neutral.
You got the Paiva against Double Z fight where I thought Double Z won that one.
Agreed.
You had the Dos Santos and Saparov fight, which I don't know how anyone's gave all 3 rounds to against Dos Santos. You had the close decision between Max and Alex. Am I missing one?
No, there's been so many bad. It's been horrible. So what I'm getting at is, I feel like I was going to say that they're favoring volume and the more active fighters over quality. Quantity over quality. But that can't be right if they awarded Volkanovski the fight over Max.
Okay, it was the thing about that scoring. It came down to the 5th round. I would have thought it would came down to the 3rd round, but it was actually the 5th round. Who has the highest potential on FanDuel between Benavidez, Jackson, Gastelum, and Roman?
Benavidez, Jackson, Gastelum, Roman. So Roman could go out there and put Ibrahimov away quickly. It's just A, the guy's coming off of being juiced. And then B, we haven't seen him against actual competition that's going to punch him in the face. So I would say Gastelum. I'm heavy on Gastelum today, and I feel pretty confident in it.
Yeah. Let's see here. Jacasey or Dawson FanDuel cash?
I don't think you can go wrong. I mean, if you have the money, pay for Dawson. Dawson's going to kill it, most likely, if you can get the fight to the ground. Jacasey should be able to do whatever he wants to Fiziev.
Ryan, and this is in cash, Gastelum and Lipski, or Spivak and Hermansson?
First one.
Okay, that would have been Gastelum and Lipski.
Yeah.
Benavidez or Dawson FanDuel GPP? Big difference. Well, not too big difference. Salary.
Okay, because I immediately when you said it, I'm like, how is that the same? FanDuel is close.
It's $17 for Benavidez, $19. So it's not like on DraftKings where there's a huge difference.
Yeah, that's initially that's where my mind went. And I was like, what the heck? So is Benavidez and who? I'm sorry?
Grant Dawson.
I like Dawson's GPP potential. I mean, Benavidez will probably win the fight, in my opinion. May not score the best.
Gordon or Askarov to finish the lineup?
Gordon or Askarov. So Askarov has potential to get a decision over Pantoja via wrestling and tons of takedowns. I don't see him finishing Pantoja, whereas Gordon actually has some really, really tricky jiu-jitsu and one scramble away from getting a submission win. So I'm going to say Gordon, oddly enough.
So someone asked about Benavidez ownership on FanDuel. We have him at 18%, and over on DraftKings, we have him at 26%.
That's low, man. That's low. That is low. Yeah. 7,200.
Rank the $14 options on FanDuel. So I like Gordon would be my number one at 14.
Carolina, I'm scratching her off immediately.
So that means she's going to win by knockout, right?
Yeah. Okay. So usually, right, in these tight little matchups that I'm tripped up over, it's tough. But they usually burn me. But I don't think that Lipski's going to drop this one. I don't. Fiziev, I don't have much confidence in him. I think it comes down to Ibrahimov or Gordon, and I would agree with you that Gordon is it.
Chris asked about our favorite underdogs on SuperDraft.
Somebody said Brokeback is winning. Oh, goodness. Okay. Underdogs on SuperDraft. You got to look at Benavidez. 1.45 is insane. 1.45 for Askarov is insane. If you have a little I did do a SuperDraft lineup, Jason, and I threw Narimani in there at 1.5. Just because.
That's nice, yeah.
That's pretty nice. Gordon at 1.4 is nice as well.
Can Askarov score enough points in a win versus Pantoja?
That's the question. I don't know. He did score the best against Tim Elliott, but it's also, you have to think of how many takedowns did Tim Elliott stop and actually reverse, because he has sneaky takedown defense. Whereas a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy, Pantoja, probably not such strong takedown defense. If I look over here, he's got 60% takedown defense, but it's the matchup that makes me think that Askarov can just toss him around.
Best value below 8K, not named Benavidez.
They're so ugly, aren't they? I'd say Askarov.
Top $14 and under fighter on FanDuel cash, Gordon or Askarov?
You got to think, though, it's a big step up in competition for Askarov, but I think he answers the bell. Gordon, it's more of an even fight, so I'd say that one's safer.
Let's try to do some little rapid fire here to get through some of these questions before we get out of here. Can you fade the main event on FanDuel cash?
No.
Is it wise to completely fade Carolina Lipski on the DraftKings late slate?
Yes, save yourself a headache.
Best DK cash plays under 8K outside the main event?
Askarov, Gordon. That's about it.
Better dog, Johns or Alvarez?
Johns.
What fight would you fade on DraftKings?
Dolizzi Ibrahimov.
Gastelum or Diakese? Or Casey, excuse me.
Diakese. Goodness.
I see that D. It just naturally just comes out.
I say Diakese.
Someone asked about what the catch weight was for Nada and Dawson, Nada Mary and Dawson. It's 150 pounds. 60% too much ownership on Spivak.
That's a lot. That is a lot. I might fade that ownership.
Spivak or Albazi? Who scores more on DK?
Spivak.
Albazi or Roman, FanDuel GPP?
Say it again.
Albazi or Roman, FanDuel GPP.
Roman.
Fighter with the most takedowns.
Askarov.
Speedback or Albazi.
Speedback.
Fiziev will weather the storm for a submission.
Fiziev submits Jacasey. I'll do 20 push-ups.
Okay. Duffy a good contrarian play in the champion spot on SuperDraft?
Absolutely.
Four cores and double ups.
Oh, four core people. Gastelum, Jacasey, Lipsky, Askarov. Or Benavidez.
Who has higher ownership, Figueiredo or Benavidez?
Figueiredo.
Let's see here.
You guys are great. Thank you for the questions. If you guys can hit the thumbs up, we really appreciate it. We'll be here every UFC card from now on. Yeah.
Benavidez or Askarov on DraftKings?
I don't think either one of them score like crazy high. I think that Askarov's facing a very tough task. Benavidez has to weather the early storm. I'll say Benavidez because of 5.
Captain in late slate showdown. Problem with DraftKings, you got to pay up for those top. You got to really pay up for those top.
Who are we looking at for late slate? Like which fights? Which fights enough?
I will tell you right now.
Up?
So I've got one in the late slate. So I've got Jacasey in the captain spot at 12,000. Benavidez at 5,400. Roman 8,600. Gastelum 7,400. Lipsky 7,600. Pantoja 8,400.
Give me Gastelum, bro. Gastelum or Jacasey?
Yeah. So before we get out of here, any kind of last thoughts to leave on the show?
I mean, obviously, like safe picks. I don't think that straying away from Dawson is smart. I say you get to Dawson, being smart. A lot of people are going to be on Pantoja at 8,800. It's just a tough matchup, and on paper he should win the fight. The problem is you think of the fights that he has lost to. You know what I'm saying? So it's like he could just get outworked. Just because you're a higher ranked fighter doesn't mean anything. Pretty cut and dry card, though. I hope Gastelum comes through for us.
And, of course, we're going to be back on Thursday for the strategy show for UFC Fight Island number 3. So, as always, be sure to hit that thumbs up button here on YouTube. Interact with Pete and I on Twitter during the fights. He is at Pete the Heat MMA. I am at Jason_Floyd. And that is going to wrap it up for Live Before Lock for UFC Fight Island number 3. And, of course, be sure to follow Awesemo on Twitter and Instagram at Awesemo_com.